I had always thought that things between Michael and me would work themselves out. He was my first love, and we had been together for 7 years, married for 5. But the truth was, things had gotten stale. He was so busy with work. His finance career consumed him, and he was always on his phone or away on business trips. We barely even spent time together, let alone talked like we used to. It wasn't his fault, he was doing what he thought was best for us, but I couldn't help feeling neglected. It wasn't like I wanted to cheat or anything, but the loneliness was starting to eat at me. I told myself I needed something to break the monotony. I didn't think it would lead to this. It all started when James, an old friend of Michael's, reached out to me. He worked as a golf coach, and I'd met him a few times at parties over the years. We exchanged a few casual messages about golf since I had always wanted to get better at it. I thought it would be fun to finally learn how to play properly. Michael never thought twice about it. Sounds like a great way to spend your time, babe? He'd said casually, not really caring what I did while he was away on business. So, I started my lessons with James. At first, it was just a way to pass the time. I'd get home and tell Michael all about it, but he never showed much interest. It wasn't like he could. He was usually in the middle of a conference call or out on another trip. James, on the other hand, was so attentive. Every time we met for a lesson, he would listen to me, really listen, about the things going on in my life. And he would make me laugh. A lot. It felt good to have someone genuinely interested in what I had to say. James was more than just a golf coach. He was a good listener, a good conversationalist. That was something Michael and I had lost. It didn't happen overnight, but over the course of a couple of months, I started looking forward to those lessons more and more. I tried to justify it to myself, telling myself it was just a hobby, that there was nothing wrong with enjoying someone's company. But I couldn't deny that something was beginning to shift. James was good-looking, charming, and so different from Michael. When I was around him, I felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. One day after a lesson, James invited me out for drinks. I promise it's just a drink, nothing fancy. You've been working hard all week, he'd said with that playful smile of his. I agreed, telling myself it was just a casual thing. We went to a nearby bar, and after the first drink, I felt myself starting to relax. James was easy to talk to, and I couldn't help but notice how he looked at me, really looked at me. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. We talked about everything, his career, my marriage, life in general. The conversation flowed so naturally, and I found myself forgetting about the emptiness I'd been feeling at home. James made me feel good about myself again, like I mattered. And that night, just as we were about to say goodbye, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I had intended to happen. But when his lips met mine, something in me awakened. It was a spark that I hadn't realized I was missing. It was just a kiss, but it felt like more than that. It felt like a promise of something new, something exciting, something that made me feel alive. And I didn't stop it. The next day, I told myself it was a mistake, that I shouldn't have let it happen. I felt guilty, of course, but there was also a part of me that didn't regret it. I had spent so many months feeling invisible to Michael, and now, for once, I felt wanted. I rationalized it in my head, telling myself that I had done nothing wrong. It was just one kiss, and it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. The next few weeks were a blur. James and I continued to meet for lessons, and the chemistry between us only grew. We started to go for dinner after lessons, and the conversations turned more personal. We began texting each other more often. There was an ease between us that I never had with Michael anymore. I didn't stop loving Michael, but I wasn't sure what love was anymore. The kind of love I had for him felt distant, like it belonged to another time. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't truly happy either. And James? Well, with James, everything felt new, everything felt exciting. He made me feel alive in a way that had become foreign to me. One night, we met for dinner after a particularly long training session. I was still a little confused about what was going on, but when James reached across the table and took my hand, I felt something shift inside me. He looked at me, his gaze intense, and asked, "Do you ever feel like you're just not being seen anymore?" I couldn't help myself. I nodded. "Yeah," I whispered, my heart racing. "I don't know what's happened. I feel disconnected. Like I'm just going through the motions." James squeezed my hand and smiled. "You deserve to feel wanted, to feel like you're important." And before I could respond, he leaned in and kissed me again. This time, I didn't pull away. I kissed him back, and that kiss led to more. A night that I knew, deep down, I would never be able to take back. The guilt was still there, of course. I felt like I was betraying Michael, but I couldn't deny the feelings I was having. I kept telling myself I was just trying to find my own happiness, that I was only doing what was best for me. But that night, I knew that I had crossed a line. It wasn't supposed to happen. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. It was just supposed to be a one-time thing. A moment of weakness, of feeling alive again after so much emptiness. But once I had crossed that line, it was impossible to go back. After that night, things between James and me escalated quickly. Our texts turned into late-night calls. I would find myself counting down the days until I could see him again. The chemistry between us was undeniable, and what really messed with my head was how easy it felt. With James, there were no expectations, no heavy silences to fill. Everything just flowed. Meanwhile, Michael was none the wiser. He didn't suspect a thing. When I'd tell him about my golf lessons, he'd nod distractedly, absorbed in his phone, thinking it was just another hobby I was throwing myself into. He'd say things like, "Good for you, babe," or, "I'm glad you're having fun." But I could tell he wasn't really listening. Not in the way James listened. James was there when I needed someone to talk to. Michael, for all his good intentions, had become distant, too absorbed in work to notice how much I was craving attention. I'd stand in front of the mirror at night, trying on different outfits before meeting James, wondering how I had gotten here. How had I let myself become this person? A woman sneaking around behind her husband's back. But, when I looked at myself, I saw someone who hadn't felt seen in a long time. And James made me feel noticed, admired. The first time I slept with him was a week after that kiss. I had been holding back, trying to convince myself that it would never go that far. But every time we were together, I could feel the attraction between us intensifying. I would look at him, and my body would respond without my brain having to say a word. He was intoxicating. It happened at his place after another dinner. We'd had a bottle of wine, laughed, and talked about everything under the sun. But by the time we finished dessert, I could feel the air shift. There were no more jokes, no more small talk. I was acutely aware of the space between us, of the way his hand brushed mine when he reached for his glass. Then, he stood up, took my hand, and led me to his bedroom. I didn't resist. I didn't want to resist. And when his lips met mine again, everything else fell away. It was as if I had completely forgotten who I was and what I had been. All I knew was that in that moment, I wanted him. We didn't say much as we undressed. It was like everything had been building to this one moment. I was nervous, but at the same time, I felt more alive than I had in years. When we finally came together, it was slow and almost tender at first. But then it built into something more passionate, more desperate. It felt so good, so real in a way that nothing with Michael had felt in so long. I could feel myself letting go, feeling free, feeling desired. Afterward, we lay in bed, and I couldn't help but smile. James pulled me close, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I wasn't thinking about Michael. I wasn't thinking about the guilt. I was thinking about how right it felt, how perfect it felt to be with someone who truly paid attention to me. But as the night wore on, and I lay in James's arms, I felt the weight of what I was doing sink in. The guilt crept up on me. I loved Michael. I truly did. But how could I go back to him after this? How could I face him knowing that I had just given myself to someone else? Still, a part of me convinced myself that it didn't matter. I needed to do this. I needed to feel this again. And maybe Michael would never understand. Maybe he didn't need to. The next few days were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I'd wake up next to James, and for a split second, everything would feel right. But then, reality would crash down on me. Michael was still my husband. He was still the person I had promised to spend the rest of my life with. But what if I didn't want that anymore? What if what I had with James was everything I had been missing? Every time I went back to the house, I tried to pretend everything was normal. I'd kiss Michael, make dinner, talk about his day. But my mind was always somewhere else with James. I couldn't stop thinking about him. He had become my escape from the numbness I had felt in my marriage. One day, I walked into the living room to find Michael sitting on the couch, staring at his phone, looking frustrated. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. But my heart was racing. Michael glanced up and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, just work stuff," he said. Though I could tell he wasn't fully present. He was always distracted, always lost in his work. I could feel the weight of the conversation I had been avoiding pressing down on me. Should I tell him? Should I come clean about what had been happening? But what if he didn't forgive me? What if this was the end of everything? James kept telling me that I deserved to be happy, that I deserved to feel wanted. And for the first time, I was starting to believe him. But the truth was, I didn't want to lose Michael either. I wasn't sure what to do, where to go. I was lost between two worlds, neither of which seemed to offer me peace. The guilt consumed me, but it wasn't enough to make me stop. And in those quiet moments between lessons, between dinners, I could almost forget that I had a husband. Almost. Then one day it all changed. The one thing I never expected happened, and my secret, our secret, was exposed. It's strange how quickly everything can change. How one small decision can spiral into something so uncontrollable, so devastating. I never thought it would happen to me. Thought I could juggle it all, keep the secret hidden, and maintain some semblance of normalcy. But nothing stays hidden forever. It was an ordinary Tuesday when it all fell apart. Michael had been working late, as usual. He was in New York for some conference, and I had the whole evening free. I was supposed to meet James for a late dinner after a lesson, but when I checked my phone, there was a message from Michael. "I'm coming home early. Surprised you? Huh? Can't wait to see you." I felt a rush of panic. I hadn't planned on this. I'd gotten too comfortable, too confident in the routine we had established. But now, there was no turning back. I texted James right away, apologizing and telling him I couldn't make it. Something came up with Michael. I typed, hoping that would be enough. I didn't want to explain. Didn't want to get caught up in the lies. I had convinced myself that everything would be fine. But as soon as I read Michael's message again, I realized I was lying to myself. How could everything be fine when I was lying about where I was, who I was with, and what I had been doing behind his back? How could I keep pretending that this wasn't a betrayal? I scrambled to clean up the house, to make everything look normal. I hadn't even had time to change out of the clothes I wore to my lesson, my casual golf outfit that had become my uniform whenever I was with James. I didn't want Michael to notice anything out of place. I quickly grabbed the wine glasses from the counter, put away the half-empty bottle of red wine, and tossed the takeout containers from dinner in the trash. I didn't know why I was trying so hard to make it seem like nothing had changed. Maybe because, deep down, I still didn't want to admit what I had done. The front door opened, and Michael walked in, his suitcase rolling behind him. He looked tired, but his smile was genuine. "Hey babe, missed you?" I froze. For a moment I couldn't move. His presence felt so normal, but I knew, in that instant, that everything had changed. The lie I had been living for the past few months felt heavier than ever. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice trembled slightly. I walked over to give him a hug, but I could feel his eyes on me, searching. He seemed different, more alert than usual. "Everything okay?" he asked, pulling back to look at me. His eyes narrowed slightly as if he could sense that something was off. I smiled, probably a little too brightly. "Yeah, of course. Just the usual stuff. How was your trip?" He set his suitcase down and walked over to the couch. I followed him, sitting beside him, my heart hammering in my chest. "It was fine," he said, but then he paused. "Actually, there's something I need to ask you." My stomach dropped. Michael looked at me, his expression more serious now. "I tried calling you a few times, but you didn't answer, and your phone, it was off." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. "Oh, I didn't realize. I must have left it on silent. You know how it is with the lessons. I get so wrapped up in them sometimes." He nodded slowly, but something in his eyes told me he wasn't buying it. There was a shift in the air, something tense between us that hadn't been there before. "Right," he said quietly, but then added, "I was going through my emails earlier, and I found something unusual." I froze again. My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" I asked, though I already knew what he was getting at. My entire body tensed. I felt like I was about to be caught red-handed. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed me a message. A text message. One that I had completely forgotten about. It was from James. The message read, "I'll see you tomorrow, right? I can't wait to spend more time with you." I stared at the screen, my mind scrambling to find an explanation. But none came. The truth was right there, staring me in the face. The message, the timing, everything. It was all wrong. "Who is this?" Michael asked, his voice low, his eyes fixed on mine. There was no anger yet, but I could see the confusion and hurt beginning to take over. I opened my mouth, but the words didn't come out. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to explain myself. Finally, I spoke, my voice shaking. Michael, I didn't want you to find out like this. He didn't interrupt me, but I could see his grip tightening on the phone, his knuckles white. I didn't mean for it to happen. I continued, my voice breaking. It just happened. I wasn't happy, and I started seeing James for golf lessons. But then, it became more than that. And, I don't know, Michael. I didn't know how to stop. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Michael's face was unreadable, but I could feel the storm brewing behind his eyes. You didn't know how to stop, he repeated slowly, almost as if he couldn't believe what I was saying. You didn't know how to stop, or you didn't want to? The question hit me like a slap in the face. I didn't know how to answer. The guilt and shame washed over me, and I found myself struggling to breathe. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I never meant to hurt you. But Michael wasn't looking at me anymore. His eyes were fixed on the floor, his jaw clenched. I thought we were okay. I thought we were fine. But you were lying to me the whole time. I thought you were out playing golf, and instead you were with him. I don't even know what to say. Kay, this isn't the woman I married. His words cut through me like a knife. And suddenly, I realized how much I had lost. This was the moment everything changed, the moment I couldn't take back, and I had no idea how to fix it. The silence that hung in the room was suffocating. I could feel the weight of my betrayal pressing down on me, suffocating me from the inside. Michael was no longer looking at me, his eyes focused on the ground, his fingers tightly gripping the armrest as though he were holding himself together by sheer force of will. I didn't know what he was thinking, and that terrified me more than anything. His silence spoke volumes, but none of it was kind. I sat there, frozen, unsure of what to say next, afraid of saying the wrong thing and pushing him further away. After what felt like an eternity, Michael finally looked up at me, his eyes red with frustration and pain. The anger hadn't fully set in yet, but it was creeping in slowly. His voice was low, almost eerily calm as he said, "How long, Kay? How long has this been going on?" I opened my mouth to answer, but the truth, the full weight of it, felt impossible to speak. I didn't know where to start. About 6 months, I whispered, my throat tight. 6 months since I first started the lessons with James. Michael's face hardened. He stood up abruptly and began pacing around the room, running his hands through his hair, clearly trying to contain his emotions. I could hear him muttering to himself, but I couldn't make out the words. It was like he was trying to process everything that was happening, trying to make sense of the lies, the betrayal, and the hurt. I wanted to reach out, to apologize again, but I knew it wouldn't make any difference. He needed time. He needed to process it all, and I wasn't sure if there was even a place for me in his world anymore. He stopped pacing and turned to face me, his eyes filled with raw emotion. You really thought I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't notice? Do you think I'm that stupid? He asked, his voice rising. The anger had finally come to the surface, and it hit me like a slap in the face. No, Michael, I said quickly, my voice trembling. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't think about it like that. But he cut me off with a wave of his hand. You didn't think about it. That's the problem. Kay, you didn't think. If you had, maybe we wouldn't be here right now. His words stung, but I deserved them. I deserved every bit of anger, every bit of hurt he was throwing at me. Because I had betrayed him, I had broken the trust we had built over the years. There was no way to undo that, no way to take it all back. I love you, Michael, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I never stopped loving you. I was just so empty, and I didn't know how to fill that emptiness. And then James, he listened. He made me feel important again. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Michael stood still for a moment, his face unreadable. Then, without warning, he shook his head slowly. You think this is about feeling important? His voice was filled with disbelief. This is about betrayal, Kay. This is about breaking the one thing that mattered in our marriage, trust. He stepped closer, his eyes burning with a mixture of anger and pain. How could you do this to me? I've been nothing but loyal to you. I thought we had something special, something real, but now I see that I've just been some fool, thinking everything was fine. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I could barely hold them back anymore. Michael, please. I didn't want this. I didn't want to hurt you. I don't know how it got this far, it just happened. I was lonely, and I Stop. He interrupted, raising a hand. I don't want to hear the excuses. There are no excuses for what you did. I opened my mouth to say something else, but the words caught in my throat. He was right. There was nothing I could say to make it right. No apology would undo the damage I had caused. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy, until Michael finally broke it again. You need to leave. My heart stopped. What? I whispered, barely able to comprehend what he was saying. I said, he repeated, his voice quieter now but still firm, you need to leave. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with you right now. I don't even know who you are anymore. I need space. We need space. I stood up, my knees trembling. I couldn't believe this was happening. Michael, please, don't do this. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can work through it. I love you. I want to fix it. But Michael didn't move. He just shook his head again, his jaw tight. You don't get it, do you? You've broken something that can't be fixed just like that. He paused, his voice breaking. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Kay. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way. The finality in his voice hit me harder than any slap or scream could. It was the realization that the life we had built together, the life I had thought would last forever, was crumbling right in front of me. I felt the tears fall freely now. Please, Michael. I'm so sorry. I swear to you, I never wanted to lose you. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, he said softly, though there was no softness in his eyes anymore. But it's too late for that. I stood there, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to fix any of it. He turned his back to me then, walking toward the door. Just pack your things, Kay. I need you to go. I couldn't speak. My throat felt like it was closing up, and I couldn't bring myself to leave the room, couldn't bring myself to walk away. But I knew I had no choice. He had made it clear that this was the end. The betrayal had broken us, and no matter how sorry I was, no matter how much I wished I could go back and undo everything, the damage was done. With one last look at him, I walked slowly toward the bedroom, my heart in pieces. I packed my bags, feeling like a stranger in my own home. And as I stepped out the door, leaving everything behind, I realized that I had lost everything. My husband, my marriage, and, in some ways, myself. I had betrayed the one person who loved me unconditionally. And now I had to face the consequences.